Hello, good morning. Welcome to Gaming Insight Daily for Thursday, September 4th, 2025. Happy Silksong Day for those who celebrate. My name is Steve Saylor. This is your sometimes daily show of gaming news, accessibility news, or updates about my life. I have coffee in my PlayStation mug today. So yes, it is Hollow Knight Silksong release day. As I'm recording this, it's literally releasing in an hour and a half from now. Because it's only $20, I actually probably will check it out just to see if there's any potential accessibility in there. If you haven't watched my video where I got to try out the original Hollow Knight, where I played it on normal and then with easy mode, make sure to go check that out. I'll leave a link in the description down below if you missed it. I wanted to see whether or not easy mode would help me play Hollow Knight, and in hopes that maybe with Silksong that there could be some accommodation or some based on feedback from the community, or at least from disabled players. Hopefully there's some accessibility in Silksong. We shall see. There's also a few other games that are being released. Chronos from Bloober Team. I actually do have a code for that. I will be playing that. I will give my thoughts on that soon. And also, I literally just downloaded Star Wars Outlaws for the Nintendo Switch 2, and I'm very curious to be able to check that out and see what potential new accessibility could be added in there, because it's now in a handheld format. Well, it kind of was before because it could play on Steam, but Steam Deck, but now it's in the actual full handheld format, like the Switch 2. And I'm curious to see how this is going to play. This is actually one I wanted to play on the Switch 2 because I need like a good, like solid long RPG to play on my Switch. Like that's what I've been kind of wanting to do. I was originally going to do that with Ghost of Tsushima on my ROG Ally, or at least my Steam Deck, but because the battery life isn't super great on those, I didn't feel like I could be able to play that consistently. But I do want to be able to play Tsushima before Yote comes out, because we're going to have some games coming out pretty soon that are pretty good. So I'm very curious to be able to check that out and be able to play. So stay tuned for at least my thoughts on Chronos, my thoughts on potentially Silksong, and then also for Star Wars Outlaws. So that'll be coming out next week. I'll be playing those, hopefully trying to be able to play those over the weekend and give my thoughts as I go for next week. So that'll be those episodes for the show next week. Anyway, let us jump into today's story, which is from yesterday's State of Play by PlayStation, where IO Interactive showed off the first gameplay of James Bond 007 First Light. And there was apparently some folks who actually got a chance to play it before the State of Play, and they kind of give their thoughts. I'm not going to read all of this article, but this is sort of a preview article from Simon Cardy over at IGN. It's a very long article, but I'm going to read at least a little bit of it, and then we're going to jump into the gameplay that was shown. And I have watched it, so I know kind of like at least what was in it, but I'm going to jump around to kind of like to the elements that I thought could be interesting for potential accessibility and kind of stuff that I do have concerns about. So the article is labeled or is titled as 007 First Light is the Hitman and Uncharted hybrid I wanted it to be. James Bond, Indiana Jones, Lara Croft, Nathan Drake, each of these iconic globetrotters was inspired by the one created before them. Now that pattern comes full circle with IO Interactive's 007 First Light channeling the action movie's spirit of Naughty Dog's Uncharted series. But that circle forms a coin, much like the one IOI's in other iconic leading man keeps in his pocket, with two distinct sides. Agent 47's DNA runs deep in the developer's new James Bond origin story, to the point that if the charismatic British spy himself sported a barcode on the back of his head, you likely scan it and find out he'd been engineered on the same production line. From what I've seen of 007 First Light so far, and from talking to the team at IOI, it's set to be an interactive blend of both Hitman's signature do-it-yourself gameplay and a brand of cinematic spectacle you'd hope for from one of the film's most enduring series. First Light is all about earning that famous number, 007. But before the number, there's a name, James Bond. And behind that name lies another, Patrick Gibson. Casting for British most famous spy is always a hot topic, but the 30-year-old Gibson instantly looks and sounds the part, stepping into the shoes of the youngest Bond ever put to screen. At just 26, the version of Ian Fleming's iconic hero is already confident and charming, but with a dash of brashness, a wrinkle of immaturity that's not yet been ironed out. This isn't the experienced steely Bond that Daniel Craig most recently gave us, but one very much at the start of his career. I think first and foremost is the story of a young man who steps into a new world. Cinematic and narrative director Martin Imborg tells me. He steps into this world of shadows and of his future. So it is meeting someone who has a brighter outlook on life, who's more positive, who's a more relatable young man. As the audience, we know a lot about what he'll face in his future, and so we've built up a plot and an adventure that he has to go through that will mature him and take him some of the way towards the guy that we know, the seasoned 007. On His Majesty's Secret Service. First Light is a story made for the times we live in, a phrase repeated throughout my visit to the Copenhagen studio by IOI's CEO and First Light's game director, Hakan Abrak. Not only is it the first time an official Bond story has had a James working in the service of both king and country, but it's a tale that explores both the positive and negative impacts of modern technology. You'll learn all about how this benefits his arsenal of gadgets later, but for now let's focus on its threat to the world IO has built. It's the zeitgeist right now, right? Says Abrak about our attempts to wrangle and understand artificial intelligence. Thinking about how is that going to impact our lives? How is that going to impact our security? AI is certainly a part of the story. The information, what can you trust? And when you're making a game about espionage and working the shadows, these things combined with the technological leaps we are experiencing, there's a lot of material there to work on. Just as we're living in a world still getting to grips with the impact of artificial intelligence, First Light's Bond is a young man still finding his feet as an agent and indeed ticked off many firsts of his own. IOI teased that this may well be where we see him sip his first shaken but not stirred martini, and perhaps even the first time he's had to take a life. But as synonymous with alcohol and violence as he is, he's also famed for the attention he garners from the women in his life. In terms of firsts in that department, well, IOI confirms that such a lifestyle is well and truly underway. I think it would almost be kind of weirdly cool to say, well, this guy is celibate, Imborg poses. He is very charming, mid to late 20s guy. Obviously, yes, he has experience with the opposite sex for sure, so he has this easy charm. I'm not sure he's necessarily super aware of it, though it's not weaponized in the way that it is for an older Bond who will use it for this manipulation or to further his goals in that way. He's more like a regular bloke. Regular blokes don't tend to disguise themselves as chauffeurs in order to break into chess tournaments taking place at Slovakian chateaus as part of a mission to track down rogue colleagues, though. This is the setup for a very early task that establishes Bond's mission to bring in the traitorous 009 and follows a tutorial at an MI6 training facility and a prologue mysteriously titled The Iceland Incident. This demonstration level, which you can see play out in the most recent State of Play broadcast, shows us the two distinct sides to First Light's gameplay cadence. In a story of first, for the agent in training, some aspects, especially in this demo's opening half, will be familiar to those experienced in IO's masterful world of assassination. It isn't necessarily walk around with coins and throw them, Abrak explains. Bond is little more impulsive. It's a much more front-footed experience, so we might just grab something to use for distraction. Bond is more expressive and more charming, so maybe he can whisper something to distract the enemies to a certain place that he wants them to go. Let me see if there's anything else I can just sort of jump through without actually. I don't think so. Yeah, it's basically mostly kind of narrating the state of play. And there's nothing really specifically about the gameplay that I'm seeing, other than it's just their love for Bond and the kind of yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out and reading Simon's full article if you want to get the full thoughts on that. But let's jump into the gameplay because this was something that I felt was worth kind of pointing out in a few areas. One, I did share a lot of people's sentiment about the driving being a little too long or like not really that interesting, even during the chase sequences, because honestly, it's kind of what like, and I agree with them. I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I think it's just when you're watching a driving sequence in a game, it's kind of hard. There's a difference between that and actually like being on the sticks, because when you're actually on the controller and controlling the car, you do feel a lot more of the car in and of itself and how it drives, based on based on kind of just having actual full control. Whereas like watching it, it's like, okay, yeah, sure. It feels like how it generally would feel. It would basically, you're just watching someone drive a car, which is not always super interesting from a state of play standpoint, but I think it's like, I understand why they kind of included that to kind of fill the world in, and having specific dialogue that's needed in the car sequences and stuff like that. But let's just kind of like take a look, jump ahead to where we actually get to see James Bond do his stuff. So, and we could take a look at the HUD. So first off, we kind of have this sort of watch interface on the bottom left-hand corner, and it looks like it's going to be your compass as well as your kind of your gadgets for like battery, and also I guess chemicals that you can use for like chemical darts to be able to shoot it at somebody, to be able to kind of either make them want to throw up or make them use the washroom, what have you. I do think that it could be a little bit more higher contrast, even just kind of like skipping back a little bit to just this dark area here. You can see definitely the battery and the chemical sort of circles pretty well, and maybe a little bit of the arrows, but everything else kind of just fades into the background. And then when you kind of go into a lighter environment, it's faded even still. So I would love to hopefully be able to see some sort of higher contrast with that, and hopefully be able to improve the readability of this, because it looks like this is going to be kind of like your main HUD throughout the game until we get to a point. Oh yeah, because okay, so this is now where we see like the traditional Hitman sort of type gameplay, which I think is honestly a great idea. Like the fact that IO is making this, and it's on the backbone of Hitman. I mean, Hitman is basically James Bond, just in a way, like, or what you would hope to be able to have a spy game to be, and James Bond's the ultimate spy, so it makes sense to be able to kind of keep with that. But there is something in here that I do want to be able to point out. So, like, I do like to have this instinct mode, so it kind of gives like a little bit of like a higher contrast stuff for this. But if you look, you can kind of see a little bit of who you can build, what things you can be able to interact with. And I'm not a fan of the default size of it all. Like you can see here, like it definitely feels very much like it's the same font size as the Hitman series, and that was one major complaint that I had with Hitman, even going back to, I think when Hitman 3 first came out, when I first played this, like probably like over 10 years ago. It was the interface that was really, really small. So the fact that it's the default size is for this, and also even the objective screen the objective mark, what do they call it? Yeah, basically just the objective section of the HUD on the top left corner. It also doesn't really bode a lot of confidence in the default font size of this game. I do hope that there is some accessibility to be able to increase the font size of this, and it's not to say that that there isn't going to be. I mean, it's public now, but I did a couple years ago actually do a talk to IOI, like very early on in, I guess, in development for Double Side. I think they had just announced it not too long, but before I had done the talk. It was mostly just an accessibility Q&A, and I say this it's public because they actually released that as on their YouTube channel, that full kind of Q&A. I didn't even realize that it was going to be a Q&A, or that they were going to put that up, but they did, and I was happy about that. So they are aware of accessibility, and I hope that basically that there is going to be better accessibility for readability for text size and everything, including into the HUD, because otherwise I don't know if I can be able to play this game as is. I want to. This is one of my most anticipated games of now that we know next year, and the fact that it's coming out March 27th, so it's relatively soon. Hopefully this will be as accessible as I'd hope it to be. And then let's jump into kind of like the stealth mechanics here. Because I kind of definitely, so yeah. So I like the scanning, the instinctive capability, because that does, I think that does help for those who are not necessarily like kind of, I guess for the Hitman series that didn't really have this kind of capability ish. I mean, it's I do like that this feels a little bit more pronounced than what it was in Hitman. Let's just say that. And this is now showing basically the different things you can be able to do to be able to kind of distract the guard. So basically you're turning on the water, turning off the water, and it distracts a guard to be able to come and take a look and see what's going on, and then you jump into the now this you jump into the flowers. Now this I actually do like the UI. I like the font choice. I like the placement of certain things. I like sort of how it looks. Again, I just wish it had better contrast. I think the thing that has the most amount of contrast is the restricted area section here, and then where it's showing that you're hidden. And then you see a little bit of the UI in the bottom where it says bluff, lure, and focus. I do wish that there was a little bit more of a higher contrast or a larger size to this, so that way you would know. Oh, that's actually kind of interesting. Hold on. I wonder if this... Okay, so this kind of circle outline, or this kind of circle surrounding Bond, I wonder, is that the distance of how far they are hidden? Like if that guard that's sitting down crosses that this circle threshold, does that mean that they can see Bond? I don't know. Or is that sort of the range of like a battery attack or something like that? I don't know. It seems to follow him, so I'm assuming that means he can. It's his stealth, because yeah, he can still shoot with that chemical that he does. It's interesting. I wonder what that circle is supposed to be meant for. But it does. I do like that it has that kind of classic Hitman style of you do a thing like each sort of. It's like a. What's the different device where base. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad analogy. I was thinking of like the device that basically that everything kind of stacks into place, and the ball kind of moves in from a shoot down to drops down to a thing that does another thing. It's. I want to say not Roberg's kind of device. Anyway, but I like that the Hitman style of, hey, this is like you do a thing that lets a guard react to a thing, and it gives you the ultimate kind of like it's a puzzle essentially to be able to solve in order to be able to try to get in. And there's multiple different avenues and way to be able to do this. This is just one aspect or one way to be able to enter into the palace, or as it were. But I also do like this though when he jumps in here. Listen to this.
What? Ken Banks, penetration tester. I need to have a stern word with your manager.
Good to have you on the team.
Okay. Now I know that there was some folks that basically kind of could potentially complain about the dumb the dumb aspects of the AI, as it were. But I like that's the cheeky Bond that we know. It's like penetration tester. Of course, Bond would come up with something like that and it work. And I think that that's kind of the vibe that it's giving. Is that because there was a lot of times I was like watching this and thinking of how dumb the AI is of some of the NPCs, and I'm just like, yeah, but Bond is supposed to be smarter than everybody else, so of course it just like it seems dumb to us because it's like it would be dumb to Bond, but he's able to do it. By just declaring that he's a penetration tester and no one else questions it, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, great, awesome. Dude, carry on. I think that that's funny, and I think that kind of is more inclined with the cinematicness of Bond in of itself. So now when we jump down to, there is one part. I don't want to jump. Okay, yeah. Let's actually, yeah. The car chase scene, we kind of like. The only problem I have with this one is that you sometimes see the car that you're supposed to be chasing, but oftentimes in this you don't know where the car is, so you're just basically just driving for the sake of driving, and you hope that basically they're still ahead of you. Like there's no indication of whether or not you've lost the car or you're still close to it. You're just meant to just keep just driving fast and jumping through shortcuts and stuff, which is cool, which is fine. But again, I don't know just like whether or not it's working, or whether I'm gonna be constantly being like, where is the guy? Where is he? Like, am I lost? Or do I need to drive back? Do I need to choose a different route? Blah 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 blah. But when we get to the combat, though, this is where I think that this is where it sold me 100%, was how the combat plays, because this is something that is technically a little different than how they do combat in Hitman. Yes, there is combat in Hitman. But this is definitely a little bit more Uncharted than necessarily Hitman, and it definitely there's a lot of explosions in this, which is really cool, and there's a lot of gunplay and a lot of huge explosions too. Like a lot of stuff that you would think, really, does that actually take to explode that quickly or that big? And then also I do like is actually going back here. There's a few times that this happens where essentially when you're taking out an enemy, and there are different types of animations that are actually really fun that you get. Like, I don't know if you get to do these as you hit a button and you'll do this type of animation. I think it's just a contextual depending on where you are located and what you're doing with the enemy. Like stuff like this, like throwing off an enemy off to the side. Like that is a cool cinematic a thing to do for Bond, and even this, so it's like, oh, you see 3 red tanks that you can be able to shoot. Of course, yeah, 100%. Okay, but when you decide to shoot that one, and then it also explodes all the rest of them, that's Bond. That's 100% being like, you do something that's so innocuous that you don't even think about that it's gonna do that big of an explosion, and it just works. And then throwing the weapon too, and being able to go to hand-to-hand combat and throw the weapon across, jump across the hood, and then be able to take down a guy and then steal their weapon and shoot them. And then also this being able to kind of, so this is interesting. So that when you go into focus mode, it looks like, or at least Bond instinct mode, because Bond is kind of like he is the ultimate spy, and even though you are learning how to be a spy in this game, I do like that you get the instincts of Bond. Like the thing that is never it's never taught to how Bond sort of like thinks and reacts quickly in order to be able to save the day. That's just something that is just inherently part of Bond's character. That's not something you just learn from MI6. You either have it or you don't. So the fact that you can do that in game, being where it will slow down time, you can find certain things you can be able to do or shoot in order to be able to have that Bond instinct. I like that. So when you're seeing the car come and you see a little bit of like these barrels, these oil drums, and you just shoot the oil drum, which catches on fire and it basically destroys the car. Like that stuff is cool. That to me, when I'm on the sticks, if I do that and I see that happen without even realizing what technically could happen, I'd be like, wow, that is actually really neat. And that's how I felt watching the combat of this too. And also like when you jump onto, like when you're about to go into like chase over to the plane, we'll kind of jump ahead of the combat just a little bit because it is relatively the same. But you're chasing for the rope, and things kind of get in the way. And then you kind of go into in one of these, I don't know what they call these carts, basically the plane stair thingies, and you do this Bond sort of like classic move where you just jump on and grab onto the rope or to the fuel line and you jump, and then watch this. Like I love this. You get like this is so Uncharted and also like action adventure. This is so James Bond, and like I love when you throw someone like close to the edge, it just like immediately like blows them off. Like that's just cool. And then you can take their like, oh god, like this whole combat sequence is just dope. And then when it sort of takes off and you slide down, and like even though you're not probably on the sticks at that point, it's cool, it's neat, and I love that. I really, really do. But then there's another section of this that I want to be able to show, because they do talk about kind of the different scenarios that you can that you can do as Bond to jump in that I think is going to be interesting to watch, even for accessibility standpoint. So again, being able to like that Hitman style of, oh, you find it, you could, one of the ways to be able to get in to pass these guards is to be a photographer, and you so you look and find a camera, compress credentials, and then you're brought in, and then when you're where is this? No, there was one section that I wanted to see if I can find. Where is it? Because this is just sort of like it can be your standard sort of stealth move. But also this. Here we go. Yeah, this is also too. See this? See this guy in behind the door? Now I know that's sort of highlighted because of this Bond's focus mode or instinct, what have you. But does this potentially mean that there could be maybe high contrast mode, or at least they have the technology to be able to add high contrast mode into the game? I don't know. It looks pretty cool. I'd be very curious to see how that works. And then also you see a little bit more of the expanded arsenal and expanded UI, where you get the smoke pods, you get the laser strap, you get the dart phone, you get hack watch, and you get the hold to aim. So you basically get all the controls down at the bottom. Again, could use a little bit more higher contrast, could use also a larger font size, but that's we've already talked about that. And then there was another part. Yeah, it was this part here that kind of gives them multiple different ways to be able to kind of go about distracting these guards here. Either A, shoot down the chandelier, and then you can just sort of just sneak past, or you can do it again, and instead of doing that, you can throw a smoke bomb. Again, distracts the guards, and you can take out the guard and still be able to sneak in without the smoke. Or you can do your stun thing, where it basically makes them want to throw up. And what I like too is the sort of the dialogue choices that happens after this.
Oi, I need to find Saunders. There's a chance the suspect is dressed as security. The bastard could be hiding right under your noses.
Damn, I'll keep an eye out for new faces.
But sometimes,
Cheers.
hard as you may try to stay hidden, a fight is unavoidable.
Again, this is Bond. What I love about Bond, again, like thinking that quickly on the fly, being like, "Hey, Saunders, there's the guy dressed as secure," and they all just believe him. Like, I love that because it's the improv nature of Bond that just totally makes sense, and I love that the decision you make can unlock that aspect of Bond in a cool way that it still makes you feel so you're not having to. And I like that you don't have the dialogue choice in that section, like it just happens. And I think that that's just cool. I think that is just dope in and of itself. And also I love that you can pickpocket stuff, again, very Hitman sort of style. And even if you get caught,
Who are you looking for?
Relax, off-duty museum security.
Don't.
and also I haven't mentioned it yet, but the ability to be able to bluff is there was a game that had this recently. Oh yeah, Star Wars Outlaws. It had the capability of, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna, I'm gonna surrender, and then basically take them out whenever they get close enough. And I think that I love that Bond is going to be able to do that too, and you can be able to do that in this, where you can be able to just, hey, what are you talking about, or just be able to bluff like he would in a poker game, which Bond is really good at. I wonder if actually we'll be able to get to go into a poker game with in this and see kind of like Bond's like. Maybe like he's a little rougher on the edges, kind of maybe cheats a little at poker as a younger self. I don't know. I think that's kind of neat. It'd be kind of cool to be able to see.
Bond will need to rely on more than wits and charm to contain the situation.
By the way, the contextual combat stuff that's in this is just dope. Like the fact that he threw a pool ball or billiards ball at someone's head. He's got dope aim, and then also grabbing someone. Or what was it? Yeah, there was something that he did with the pool table. Maybe it's just sort of slamming him against the pool table. Yeah, that's it. There we go. So yeah, like, and then immediately grabs a pool ball, pool cue, whatever, and then throws him right in the head. Like That's just cool. That is just Bond to a T. So, and this is exactly what I had hoped for the Hitman series to be. And this aspect here, it's like not every time you get to go in the situation, you have the license to kill. So you can't really kill anybody until you get that moment. And that's part of Bond. That is part of, like, even though you hear about the license to kill often that Bond can do just at any given point. No, not all the time, especially when you're early Bond. I also going back to what I was about to say. This feels like the best parts of Hitman, which was the variety of options that you can be able to accomplish a particular mission, but then also have the combat of like an action adventure game like Uncharted or Lara Croft or like a Tomb Raider, or even most recently Indiana Jones. This is what I wanted Hitman to be. Not necessarily a simulation, a spy simulation like Hitman, but this is more the arcade Hitman. I think that's really kind of breaks it down to, like, I think that's the best way to describe it, is that this is the arcade version of Hitman, and I'm all for it. I really do like it. It's not to say that I think that the simulation version of Hitman is bad in any way. I think it's amazing. The fact that they're able to create a playground or a sandbox essentially to be able to accomplish any task in any way, shape, or form or any mission in any way, shape, or form. I think that's cool, and the fact that IOI is best suited to be able to integrate that into the world of Bond. I really don't think there's any other studio who could be able to tackle a Bond game properly in this way, and I think that this, yes, while the state of play didn't really fully kind of sell me on board, and even looking at this with the potential accessibility, it may not have the amount of accessibility that I would hope for, but this is just enough to still they definitely keep me now interested. I didn't realize that we were going to get it this soon. The fact that it's coming out on March 27th, I actually had a talk with, I was talking with my friend Marcel, who I do the gaming podcast with, and we were speculating on this state of play because we hadn't come out yet. But we were speculating that if they have a state of play with showing 30 minutes of gameplay, which is of the first full mission, this game is a lot longer than we think, and we kind of speculated that this game could be coming out either this fall or winter or early next year, and we were right. It was definitely early next year. We're getting it March 27th. So I think that's great. The fact that we're going to get this game in literally 6 months from now, that's awesome. And again, it just jumped up as one of my most anticipated games for next year. And because I hope that IOI was able to integrate accessibility into the game to be able to make it more accessible for disabled players. This demo or this gameplay didn't really show a lot of that. I kind of wish they do. And that's the thing I wish that the state of plays or directs would do, is that they would include what could be accessibility. Like what they could have done in this, as a perfect example, they could have added the subtitles of the dialogue that was happening and see what the subtitle options would have looked like. I think something like that could be integrated without it seeming like, oh, now here's the accessibility showcase of it. I think they could have done that pretty well, or at least showcase maybe the larger font size. I mean, I guess maybe they wanted to kind of show the default of here's what it looks like, and instead of like showing here's the larger size, and then people are like, wait, why does it look smaller than it did? So I guess that's probably that. But I wish they would show more of the accessibility in these types of things, or at least give more accessibility information during this, because I would have loved to have been able to see it, and I'd love to be able to talk about it with you all. But speaking of you, what did you think of this demo of the 007 First Light from IOI? I would love to be able to hear your thoughts on it. Do you think are you looking forward to playing it? Are you interested in the accessibility of it? Let me know in the comments section down below. That's gonna be it for me. There's not gonna be an episode tomorrow, unfortunately, unfortunately for you, but unfortunately for me, I'm going to my cousin's wedding tomorrow, so I will be away from my office so I can't be able to record an episode. So with that being said, I will try to be able to play a bunch of games, and I will be back again on Monday with a brand new episode. Thank you so much for watching and or listening, and I will see you all on Monday. Bye-bye.